Your shift begins at 12 AM and ends by 6 AM. On your first day, the phone guy leaves a message for you to hear as you begin your first night.
I'm here to tell you there's nothing to worry about. You'll be fine. So let's just focus on getting you through your first week, okay?
Formalities aside, the purpose of this news serves to inform you on how to play the game and further immerse you into the environment you're in. The more you play, the greater the sense of isolation you feel. More on that later. Your shifts to begin with don't feel long, but making it further into the nights, they can start to drag. So on the first night, use this time to become more familiar with the game's controls. They're simple enough to work, with only 3 buttons to memorize. That controls the camera, doors and lights, and of course the left analog stick controlling the direction of your view, leaving it down to how fast you can react in the situation. Not much is happening on your first night. Around the 3 AM mark, things start to get interesting as one of the animatronics will start to move around the pizzeria, either Bonnie or Chica. Their characteristics differ from one another. Bonnie will move fast, teleporting around the pizzeria towards your office seamlessly, while Chica on your right moves slower. If they're both on the move on the first night, it can be harder to keep an eye on them at the same time because their movements are not the same as each other, causing you to routinely check your cameras. This is where the power usage comes into play. So on the first night, you're better off not using your cameras as much, since the game allows you to deal with Bonnie and Chica just by flashing your office lights and closing the door when you see them. They won't be appearing outside your office as much as later nights, so power usage for night 1 isn't a concern. But when night 2 clocks in and you're getting into a nice groove, building a nice little routine to handle Bonnie and Chica, another party member sprints into action. For most, and myself included, your mind won't be able to react fast enough and you'll lose the game, subverting your expectations greatly. This is just another part of the learning experience in developing better management. So by night 2, the game wants you to deal with the 3 musketeers. To make things easier, just keep an eye on Foxy and use your lights for Chica and Bonnie. With Foxy jumping out a couple of times, you'll still be left with just enough power to make it through the night. His movements are random and Foxy drains more power every time he bangs on your door. As I mentioned earlier, nights going forward are gonna drag as the workload starts to increase. Bonnie and Chica's movements aren't in sync and they're starting to show up more frequently. To top it off, their movements are arbitrary on every night. There's no set routine, so your experience with the game is gonna be different to mine. You're just gonna have to figure out what works best for you. While in the situation, the game throws in a lot of sounds to keep things interesting in the moment-to-moment gameplay. Placing a greater sense of isolation on you while you're trying to make best of the situation you're in. It's great. Some of the sounds serve to aid you, like the footsteps of Chica and Bonnie approaching your office, while other sounds in the game, the fan on your desk included, only serve to get in the way, making it harder for you to hear. You're going to be looking in the cameras trying to make sense of it. Do this long enough and the game makes you regret it. Going into night 3 and onwards, the bear himself will join the party, and his movements also differ from Chica and Bonnie, giving you less and less actions to take while trying to keep a lid on the 3 musketeers. And when the lights go out, it's game over. It's gonna cost more power to keep tabs on Freddy as well as Foxy while trying to stop Bonnie and Chica. You may think not using your cameras to save power and just relying on audio clues without using your surveillance will suffice, but can you risk the lack of information with Freddy and Foxy? Juggling between the absence of information and action is key to surviving in Five Nights at Freddy's. It's gonna take a lot of trial and error, but that's what makes the game so compelling. On top of its immersive sound effects, it's easy to get into but hard to master, creating this obsession to see the nights 1 and beyond through to the end. In this small horror title, I got to experience all the delights of panic and terror.